What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with reactions to the classics, and today we got the much anticipated top 10 British Christmas songs, although there's actually a dozen this time around. Brought to us by a friend, one-time supporter and patron of the channel, Evan David. Thank you to Evan David. Thank you to all the patrons who make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way, check out the Patreon link below. The patron link on the end screen. Without the patrons, this channel wouldn't exist. We put up videos every single day, and it takes a ton of man hours. So before we even get started, I'll let you know that the music will not be in this video because it get blocked, because all 12 songs are going to be video. So that would get us blocked as well. We get doubly blocked, although that's not really a thing. So check out the Vimeo link below if you would like to follow along with this, which I much advise, especially because every song's a video. Before we get started, Evan David is going to give us a little history into the British top Christmas songs. He says rock and roll legend has it that the very first official #1 single in the British Christmas charts would be Here in My Heart by Italian-American crooner Al Martino in December of 1952, while the first such #1 single to specifically refer to Christmas in its title would be Christmas Alphabet by British pop singer Dickie Valentine in December of 1955. In the intervening years, moreover, many of the most successful chart tunes at Christmas would, like Martino's tune, in fact, have nothing to do with the holidays themselves per se, with prime examples being the 4 UK Christmas #1 scored by the Beatles between 1963 and 1967, Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody in December of 75, and Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 in December of 1979, and so on and so forth. By the early 1970s, however, perhaps partly in response to the issuing of Phil Spector's own already legendary festive album, A Christmas Gift for You, aka Phil Spector's Christmas album in the UK for the first time in 1972, several top British artists of the period had already begun to record specifically Christmas-based tunes in a bid to top the festive charts and potentially follow in the footsteps of Phil Spector and other quintessential Christmas stars such as Bing Crosby of White Christmas fame, and thus perhaps securing for themselves a similar kind of musical immortality of sorts and also a financial windfall, I will add in there. The sense of an all-out competition between major acts for festive UK chart domination would peak in 1973 when two of the biggest and most famous glam rock giants of the period, namely Wizzard and above all Slade, would both vie for the top Christmas spot, with the high sales thus achieved by both parties serving to alert record companies to the potentially highly lucrative financial returns to be had by releasing Christmas songs for the UK market. After all, as a perennial British Christmas hitmaker Cliff Richard once astutely noted, quote, "Between October and December, more records are sold in the UK than in the other 9 months totaled. Why would you want to release a record in January when you know it was going to sell more if you released it in December?" So it's purely business, really. Over the next few decades, therefore, an annually recurring chart pattern was set whereby even if a particular year's official UK Christmas #1 was not in fact Christmas-based itself, there would still usually be several far more explicitly Christmas-related songs lying in its wake chart-wise. Given such often fierce seasonal competition, moreover, it would be an even greater achievement for the future Sir Bob Geldof in 1984 when he was able to corral the cream of British chart pop at the time to perform on perhaps the most historically significant British Christmas song of all time, namely Bandmaid's charitable masterpiece, Do They Know It's Christmas? The unanticipated success of this truly iconic tune in raising a staggering £8 million for Ethiopian famine relief within a year of its first release would not only serve to inspire artists on the other side of the pond to contribute to the cause in the guise of USA for Africa before teaming up with their UK counterparts for the transatlantic extravaganza that was the first Live Aid concert back in 1986, but would inspire a slew of other charity-related Christmas tunes in future years, many of which would achieve considerable UK Christmas chart success in their own right without ever quite eclipsing Geldof and company's original triumphs on this score, but that would be hard to do. By the early 21st century, however, the sense of giddy excitement that many British music lovers and casual listeners alike once felt regarding just who would be the UK Christmas #1 was suffering from an acute sense of diminishing returns, since year after year it seemed more and more like his musical expert Paul Gambianchi once put it, whereas, quote, "Radio used to be the origin of all the Christmas #1s. Now suddenly it's television." More specifically, it was the ITV juggernaut. It was Simon Cowell's talent show, The X Factor, that for years would seemingly produce an unending conveyor belt of artists who would go on to almost automatically secure that year's UK Christmas #1. Much to the disgruntlement of many ordinary British people who echoed broadcaster Chris Stark's observation that, quote, "It felt like people were going, this is our chart, we want the Christmas chart to be run by us, and not feel like the X Factor, do it, and bang, it's guaranteed #1. This sense of reality TV fatigue would reach its own Christmas chart topping pinnacle in 2008 when a grassroots internet campaign successfully lobbied enough members of the great British public to buy American anarcho-punk's Rage Against the Machine's uber rebellious anthem Killing in the Name of, so that it would beat the X Factor's then latest offering to the Christmas top spot in an act of seasonal rebellion, which would, at least temporarily, put the proverbial brakes on the show's aforementioned Christmas #1 conveyor belt. Overall, therefore, this brief and incomplete summary of the historical ins and outs of British Christmas songs over the modern musical era should hopefully point out the fickle nature of Yuletide fortune when it comes to Christmas chart success. Unusual indeed, as such, even though reality television of some kind or other still often proves to be a key driver in ensuing UK Christmas chart success, even up to the present day, the very fact that for the last 4 years, the UK Christmas #1 has instead belonged to one Lad Baby, an internet personality who's infamously composes spoof songs based on his love of the perennial British Christmas foodstuff that is sausage rolls, only goes to prove Waterman's other observation that, quote, "We are an island, and one thing I love about Britain is we laugh at ourselves. We're not frightened to have a laugh. It's like only in Britain." It is the very same eccentric collective musical taste of the British people at Christmas, which has made compiling this list a tricky yet enjoyable process, and one much in keeping with my own self-confessed musical eccentricities to boot. As such, while I am ever acutely aware that some of the choices on this top 12 list will probably make some viewers go bah humbug on at least one occasion, I hope you will nevertheless all still enjoy this UK Christmas musical selection box, whether you are completely unfamiliar with most of the tunes in question, as the guys from RTTC presumably are. Yeah, I am on most of these. Or whether you are already eagerly anticipating or dreading hearing many of them replayed over and over in supermarkets and the like across the land once again this year. Regardless, either way, I look forward to seeing your own favorite British Christmas songs in the comments below. Until then, happy listening, and Evan David says, Merry Christmas. A reminder, the music will not be in here. Check out the Vimeo link below. We're going to go to number 12, and we got Mistletoe and Wine by Cliff Richard. Evan David says, first released as a single in late November 1988, and ultimately becoming the UK Christmas #1 for that year. This cozy and nostalgic tune, in fact, had a rather darker beginning, and then it was adapted from another tune of the same name from a Victorian set musical version of This Little Match Girl, which is the song's original co-writer, Leslie Stewart, put it, quote, "It was about a child dying of neglect in the cold at the feet of middle and upper class carol singers. You don't have to hammer that one home. It's obvious," end quote. Cliff Richard himself, on the other hand, has described how Mistletoe and Wine was spotted by my manager, and it did sound like a hit to me. There's something about a waltz tempo, too, that's very, very catchy. My manager was absolutely right to bring it to my attention because I said to him, well, I think we have to record it. Sometimes you have to do something that feels good and feels right. It doesn't matter if it's not chugging rock and roll guitars. There are other things in life, end quote. Befitting these sentiments, it is perhaps unsurprising that Cliff would seek to rewrite the song's lyrics in order to better fit in with his own strongly held Christian views regarding the festive season, later claiming that, quote, "I had a little lines that made it sound Christmassy, and the writers didn't give a darn whether I did that or not," end quote. In fact, while the second of the tune's original co-writers, composer Keith Strachan, truly had no objection to this, lyricist Leslie Stewart was far less keen at first, to say the least, although he would later concede that, quote, "Yeah, I can see what they've done. They've produced a very good Christmas song." As I said below, even though you see the song below, we're gonna watch all videos. So I'm gonna have the lyrics up as always, but you're not gonna get much lyrical breakdown. You're probably gonna need it on Christmas stuff, but it's either videos or lyrics breakdown kind of for me. This is from Top of the Pops in December of 1988. Thanks again, Evan David. All right, Mistletoe and Wine, very catchy. He faked me out partway through it. I'm like, this surely wasn't almost 4 minutes when he was wishing everybody a Merry Christmas. Cliff's hair, you've got the neon lights, you got the smoke. It's all just about 1988, right? And you know, Cliff Richard was never a big star here in the States. He was on the show we had here in the States called Solid Gold a few times, and so I do remember him just from that, but I know he's much bigger, obviously, in the UK. Great voice, nice performance, nice sentiment to the song. Next up, we have Christmastime, Don't Let the Bells In by The Darkness. First issued as a single, Evan David says, in December of 2003, ultimately reaching number 2 in the UK Christmas charts that year. This raucous, innuendo-filled Yuletide rocker was deliberately designed, much as the band itself had been, as an ironically loving throwback, this time to British Christmas hits of yore. As for The Darkness bass player Frankie Poland once put it, we wanted to bring back a little bit of the flavor and feeling that people had all the way through the 70s and was actually guitar bands doing Christmas songs. We said at the early stages that it was obvious it should have a choir. It wasn't rocket science. Cliched or not, Evan David says, both the tune itself and The Darkness as a whole are still a tremendous amount of fun. We're going to check out the official video for the song. All right, The Darkness, Christmastime. Hey, you got the girl at the end, a nice done video. a nicely done video, I should say. And yeah, feigning joy and surprise at the gifts we despise over mulled wine with you on the 25th day of the 12th month. Those sleigh bells are in time, ringing true. How we cling each Noel to that snowflakes hope in hell that it won't end. Don't want the bells in Christmas time. Just let them ring in, please. And Chris, you know, all of it works. I really liked that one. Next up, number 10, Song for 10 by Neil Hannon. Evan Davis says first released as part of the official soundtrack album to the first two series of the revived British TV sci-fi masterpiece Doctor Who in December of '06, and sung by Divine Comedy frontman Neil Hannon from Northern Ireland. This lovely yet wistfully haunting Yuletide ballad was first heard in a shorter on-screen version sung by actor-musician Tim Phillips in the episode The Christmas Invasion, which, as its title implies, was not only first broadcast at Christmas the previous year, but also saw the iconic debut of David Tennant as the 10th and arguably the most popular incarnation of the Doctor to date, hence the name given to the song's own title in turn. As such, and part of a small but passionate group of Doctor Who fans amongst the RTTC community, we talk about it. Well, they do. I don't know anything about it on live streams. I would indeed deserve to be exterminated Dalek style if I did not take this opportunity to ask you guys to please react to this particular Christmas/Who related tune, especially as not only has Doctor Who served as a central part of the BBC's Christmas and or New Year's Day TV schedules ever since its revival in 2005, but in any case, I fervently believe that it is strong enough tune to survive in its own right, even shorn of its Whovian trappings. Although to play it safe, I'd like you guys to please react to this fan-made tribute video for the song. Song for 10. I thought a really good song. I like that song. I thought fan-made videos are always interesting, right? They take so much time, like, to put those things together. I mean, I don't know anything about Doctor Who, but those of you that love it, I'm sure you loved the video. But I thought a good performance there. You know, basically the idea of the story is they get to spend Christmas together. And now I think they're apart. You know, they were together for the holidays, so he's reminiscing and wishing that every day could be that because he gets to be with her. Next up at number 9, we got Wombling Merry Christmas by the Wombles. First released as a single in November of '74, Evan David says, eventually peaking at 2 on the UK singles charts that December. This prime slice of British Christmas silliness comes from the pen of composer Mike Batt, the musical mastermind behind the Wombles, a pop group based upon the equally successful children's stop-motion animated TV series of the same name, narrated by legendary British actor Bernard Cribbins, which was itself based upon an earlier series of children's books by author Elizabeth Beresford. The series focused upon the misadventures of the Wombles of Wimbledon Common, a family of small, furry, underground creatures who spend their days tidying up the rubbish left in their local area by careless humans, and thus, as the show's immortal theme song goes, making good use of the things that we find, things that everyday folks leave behind. See, I didn't ever know, as an American, what the Wombles was about. And an astute example of the recycling that the Wombles so wisely pioneered, meanwhile, the success of the TV show was quickly spun off into a brief but wildly successful musical career, which would see all 4 of the Wombles studio albums go gold between 1973 and 1975, and 4 of their singles reached the top 10 in the UK singles chart during the same period, all of which served to officially make the Wombles the most successful musical act of 1974 in the UK, bar none, with their albums in the UK charts for more weeks than those of any other act during that year. That's astounding to me. This charming Christmas single would serve as the final pinnacle of the Wombles chart success. We're going to react to the Top of the Pops performance in early January 1975. Okay, Wombling Merry Christmas. Not something that a guy like me really gets from the States. The performance or the song so much. The song's fine. I can see how it could be catchy. Kudos to the guy who was playing the lead singer, who's able to jump in those trash cans and jump back out with such coordination in that suit that had to be difficult. I mean, not a horrible song. I'm not trying to slam it, just not something that I exactly am feeling. Next up at number 8, we have Father Christmas by the Kinks. First released as a non-charting single in November 1977, this mischievous punk-esque tune, which has since been covered by artists including but not limited to Green Day, Cheap Trick, Bad Religion, Bowling for Soup, Smash Mouth, and even wrestling legend Chris Jericho. Shows songwriter Ray Davis, or Davies, whatever you prefer, usual caustic wit to still be in full effect, even and perhaps especially during the so-called festival season. As Kinks guitarist and Ray's brother Dave once put it, I love the humor of it and the aggression and bitterness. I could see the faces of my own parents when Christmas came around. They had to struggle to make ends meet. We kind of got what we needed, but there was something fake about the holiday. And Evan David says, and it is this gleeful skewering of this endemic class divisions then, and in many ways perhaps still underlying this soppy sentimental facade of Christmas within British society that gives this tune its true sardonic power. We're going to watch the official video of this. And this is one of my daughter, Mackenzie, who just turned 16. It's one of her favorite Christmas tunes, man. Father Christmas, what a fantastic song. Ray is on full effect there. A great performance, nice video. And I won't go into what it says at the start of the song in case you little boys and girls are in the background hearing this, but then eventually he's playing Father Christmas and he gets jumped, right? He gets jumped playing Santa Claus. And they say they have no use for his toys, give him some money because the poverty stricken kids don't really need the toys. They need money to eat and live, right? But just a great song, man, whether it was a Christmas song or not. Next up at number 7, we have I Believe in Father Christmas by Greg Lake. Evan David says first released as a single in November of 1975 and ultimately reaching number 2 in the British Christmas charts that year. This powerfully embittered seasonal tune gave ELP guitarist Lake his only taste of chart success as a solo artist, the genesis of which Lake once revealed came as follows, quote, I've written this little guitar riff, but I didn't know what the song would be that would go with it. I really lamented the way Christmas had degenerated from being a time of peace on earth, goodwill to all men, into a marketing experience, It's quite a serious commentary on Christmas. We, i.e. Lake and fellow songwriter lyricist Peter Senfield, were trying to make a point. Evan David says, as it turns out, the precise nature of the point they were trying to make has occasionally been disputed over the years, with many critics detecting an anti-religious aspect to the song, even as Lake himself insisted it was attacking the commercialism of Christmas, not necessarily Christmas or Christianity itself per se. We're going to look at the original video. I Believe in Father Christmas, Greg Lake. An interesting video. It's kind of not much going on for a little bit, and then we got into the whole war thing, right? And the soldier coming home. The lyrics themselves, a veil of tears for the virgin birth. I remember one Christmas morning, and winter's light and a distant choir and the peal of a bell and that Christmas tree smell and their eyes full of tinsel and fire. They sold me a dream of Christmas. They sold me a silent night. They sold me a fairy tale till I believed in the Israelite. And I believed in Father Christmas, and I looked to the sky with excited eyes. So just talking till I woke with a yawn in the light, first light of dawn, and I saw him and through his disguise. I wish you a hopeful Christmas. I wish you a brave new year. All anguish, pain, and sadness leave your heart, which a road be clear. They say there'll be snow at Christmas. They said there'd be peace on earth. Hallelujah, Noel, be it heaven or hell, the Christmas we get, we deserve. So the anti-Christian part is they believed, till I believed in the Israelite. They sold me a fairy story until I believed in the Israelite. So, I mean, he's saying it's a fairy tale story of Jesus, if you want to take it as that. And as a Christian, I can tell you that's as anti-Christian as it gets. The Bible's very clear. You either believe in Jesus or you don't. There is no in between. So anyway, yeah, it was fine, man. It had that EOP sound to it. Next up at number 6, it had to be here, right? Wonderful Christmastime, Paul McCartney. Evan David says first released as a single in November of 1979, ultimately peaking at number 6 in the British Christmas charts that year. Music expert, we talked about him already, Paul Gambacchini, once astutely remarked that Wonderful Christmastime is 100% Paul McCartney. He's playing it, he's singing it, he wrote it, he produced it. It's obviously the Christmas record he wanted to make and get out of his system. The musical results of this confection will be on this official video that we're going to watch, which Evan Davis says was himself filmed impromptu style at the Fountain Inn pub in West Sussex, England, whose then landlady later remarked how Paul's, quote, production company just came one lunchtime, looked around and said, would we be interested in having a film done here? We did warn Paul that a lot of the hammers on the piano were missing because the mice had eaten them away, but he still got fantastic music from it. We actually closed the pub, but somehow on the grapevine, people found out, so they were piling in and the atmosphere was fantastic. Afterwards, the McCartney sent me a lovely, lovely bunch of flowers with a thank you note, which I cherish. They were a lovely couple. Can you imagine that getting around? I know this song, people love it or hate it. I like it. I mean, it is classic Paul, right? So let's check it out. All right, Wonderful Christmastime. The video was entertaining. You imagine him just showing up. Look, man, the song's just catchy. I'm singing along with it. I'm going to full well admit to you, this song is not a very good song at all. It's like a lot of Paul McCartney and Wayne stuff and wherever through his solo career as well, where it's just so, I don't know, man. It's that granny writing that John talked about back in the Beatles day, but it's charming, man. It's Paul, so I'm curious to the thoughts of this song down below in the comments. Next up at number 5, we have Jethro Tull. Who knew, man? Ring Out, Solstice Bells. First released as an EP single in November of 1976. Evan Davis says it ultimately peaked at 28 on the British charts that year. Frontman Ian Anderson has since described how, in the case of this thoroughly medieval, if not out-and-out pagan-sounding Yuletide tune, quote, I deliberately attempted to write, if not a pop song, at least a song that was catchy enough to be getting radio play and achieve something in the singles chart. It would have been rather nice to have had a top 10 hit and been on the Christmas edition of Top of the Pops. As already, quote unquote, as already alluded to, however, Tull would at first have no such luck in the chart terms, but the song has since slowly managed to gain traction as an unorthodox festive favorite over the intervening years, and the band did indeed manage to perform the song live on Top of the Pops, at least on one occasion in December of '76, which we are going to watch. Ring out Solstice bells, Jethro Tull, Ian Anderson putting it on there. He's having a little hard time keeping up with it, right, when he's miming it or lip syncing it, but a good performance. He sounded great on it. I mean, more of a pagan song, definitely, than a Christmas song with the Solstice, but a good sound on that one. Now, at number 4, we have Lonely This Christmas by Mud. Evan David Says first released as a single in December of '74 and ultimately becoming the UK Christmas #1 for that year. This wistful festive ballads co-writer Mike Chapman of Chin and Chapman fame once described how it was written on, quote, "A boiling hot day in August. I basically sat down with the guitar and started playing a lot of old Elvis songs to try to get it in that musical groove. I wanted something that had sadness in it. I had had a couple of lonely Christmases myself, so I figured I'm writing from experience here." Mud frontman Les Gray had a terrific ability to do his Elvis impersonation. I remember Les saying to me, "That's really pushing it, Mike. It's one thing to sing like Elvis, but then to actually do all the goofy spoken word stuff. Are you sure?" I said, "Yes. Les, I promise you, trust me, it'll work." As Mud bassist Ray Styles once insisted, Lonely was a Mud record, not Elvis. He never covered it. He knew that we'd done it because Mike told him, and Elvis said, "Carry on, boys. It's great." Here is a Top of the Pops performance. Lonely This Christmas. What are they doing to the boys from Mud? Dropping all that stuff on him. Every singer's got it on his tongue, trying to get it off of there. That would have been miserable. What a strange video with the mannequin. A pretty good song. Yeah, it harkens back to some Elvis, some 50s stuff. Guy looking like he's wearing a world championship belt as his belt buckle. Just the whole vibe of it all was screaming mid-70s. So a nice little smooth tune there. All right, now we're to the big 3. I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day by Wizzard. Evan David Says first released as a single in December of '73 and ultimately peaking at number 4 on the British Christmas charts for that year. This perennial joyous rocker of a Christmas tune has since become notorious for being pipped to the post by Slade's equally perennial Merry Christmas Everybody to the UK Christmas #1 spot back in the day. In a festive musical duel, which is mentioned above, is often credited as reviving a wider interest in Christmas songs by both British musicians and the general public alike ever since. It's a genuine shame on one level, as this cracking tune richly deserves to be regarded as perhaps the archetypical British Christmas song in its own right, with its creator, Wizzard frontman and ex-Move and ELO founder Roy Wood, once describing how, quote, "What I really wanted to do was make a track that sounded like a Walt Disney soundtrack. And I imagined it being on a cartoon or a Walt Disney thing, you know. So I thought, what does it need? And it ended up using like everything, including 2 kitchen sinks with all the taps turned on." We're going to check out the official video. Okay, Wizzard, I wish it could be Christmas every day. What a performance, right? They really put everything on there with the little kids coming out, playing all the instruments. A catchy song, almost 5 minutes long, so it kind of stands out on this list for being a little bit longer, but a pretty good song. I don't think it's on Slade's level, but you guys got to remember, I'm here in the States. I've never heard this song. If I've heard it once on a live stream. So when you're familiar with these, obviously, the more you hear a song, the more it grows on you usually, unless it's just not a very good song at all. So that one's probably, sure, I could see how it's a classic, but for me, it was fine. Now a song I definitely know at number 2, Fairytale New York by the Pogues and Christy McCall. This song is my daughter's favorite Christmas song. I just introduced her to it last year, but she told me the other night she was listening to some Christmas songs. She's like, yeah, this is my favorite Christmas song, so gotta love it. I haven't heard it that many times. It was on our Pogues Top 10 that we did. You can go look at that. We did that a long time ago, and it was on another list I did. But it was, Evan David Says, his first release as a single in November of '87, and ultimately and controversially peaking at number 2 on the British Christmas charts for that year. Guardian journalist Dorian Linsky once memorably summed up this decidedly unorthodox, yet oddly befitting Christmas song's irresistibly growing appeal over the intervening years as follows, quote, "Once upon a time, a band set out to make a Christmas song, not about snow or sleigh rides or mistletoe or miracles, but lost youth and ruined dreams. A song in which Christmas is much the problem as it is the solution. A kind of anti-Christmas song that ended up being, for a generation, the Christmas song. It is loved because it feels more emotionally real than the homesick sentimentality of White Christmas or the bullish bonhomie of Merry Christmas, Everybody. But it contains elements of both, and the story it tells is an unreal fantasy of 1940s New York dreamed up in 1980s London," end quote. Evan David Says, unsurprisingly then, perhaps this combative yet loving festive tune sprang from suitably unlikely soil, with one story detailing how the Pogues' Anglo-Irish frontman Shane MacGowan wrote it as a result of a bet with their then producer Elvis Costello that he wouldn't be able to write a Christmas hit single, while the song's originally planned version with Pogues bassist Kate O'Riordan taking the lead vocal female lead vocal was unceremoniously scrapped when she chose to lead the band after becoming romantically involved with, Elvis Costello. Fortunately, the band's new producer, Steve Lillywhite, not only immediately saw the potential appeal of the song, but was also married at the time to English singer Christy McCall, who turned out to be ideal for the song's female role, with McGowan later, quote, explaining that Kirsty knew exactly what the right measure of viciousness and femininity and romance to put into it, and she had a very strong character, and it came across in a big way. In operas, if you have a double aria, it's what the woman does that really matters. The man lies, the woman tells the truth. That's usually the case in life, but not always. And obviously, Kirsty would tragically lose her life at 40 or 41 from a crazy accident, but that's a story for another day. Eventually, despite being originally kept off the top of the Christmas charts by the Pet Shop Boys cover of Elvis Is Always on My Mind, and being repeatedly mired in controversy both then and now for some of its more dodgy lyrical content, this song has endured these difficulties until eventually became the most played Christmas song in the UK during the 21st century so far. We're going to have the song's official and lyrically unabridged video, as Evan David points out. Fairytale of New York, featuring Kirsty McCall. Just a great song, man. I know there's a word, or probably there's a couple words in there. I know the one that everybody's upset about, but there's another couple things in there of things that he calls her that can be a little questionable. But for me, so I understand if that like puts the song out for you, but for me, I mean, it's a great song. And Shane McCown and the Pogues are just fantastic, man. So like that. I've never seen the official video. Was that Matt Dillon at the beginning as the cop bringing him in? Matt Dillon was a huge star in the 80s in America in the movies. I don't know, but it's kind of surprised to see that. Well, I think you might be surprised that isn't number one, but most of you will probably guess what number one is, especially if you know Evan David at all. We got Merry Christmas, Everybody by Slade. First released as a single in November of 73, officially becoming the UK Christmas number one for that year. As mentioned above, it was calculated back in 2014 that by then at least 42% of the world's population had heard this quintessential British Christmas song. I don't know how you figure that out, but a truly staggering number, which can only have grown still further in the near decades since. I've already gone into detail about the song's creation in last year's Slade's top 10 list for RTTC, which I humbly urge listeners to check out if they haven't already. It's really good. As Slade's lead singer and Britain's unofficial herald of Christmas, Noddy Holder, once put it, quote, "At Christmas, every shop's playing it wherever, and people go, oh no, not again. But when they don't hear it, they miss it. Every year somebody bans it. We get an email come through at the office. Some airports banned it this year, or some stores banned it this year. But come a week before Christmas, they're all playing it again. We're going to look at it from a live performance from 1983 in a Dutch TV program, Countdown. I can't even remember how much money this makes. It's in that video. It makes an insane amount of money for these guys every single year. All right, Merry Christmas, everybody. Number one on Evan David's top 12 in this case, British Christmas songs. You know, I'd never heard this song until this channel, so I still don't know about this. 42% of everyone has heard this song by 2014, but a good song, a fun little, it's almost a decade later from when they came out with a fun little performance there. So very catchy. It's the Merry Christmas. It's very catchy, so I could see why it's just a perennial hit in the UK. Before we get to my favorites, we got Evan David's honorable mentions. A Spaceman Came Traveling by Krista Berg. Christmastime Is Here Again by the Beatles. 2,000 Miles by the Pretenders. Walking in the Air by Aled Jones. Gaudette by Steely Span. Last Christmas by Wham. Make a Daft Noise for Christmas by the Goodies. Do They Know It's Christmas by Band Aid. I was kind of surprised that was not in there. Happy Christmas, War Is Over by John Lennon and Yoko Ono, a great song. The Power of Love by Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Stop the Cavalry by Jonah Louie, and Merry Christmas Everyone by Shakin' Stevens. I know some of those. I don't know a lot of those. And that will seamlessly bring me to my faves. Got to throw an honorable mention out to Paul McCartney, Wonderful Christmas Time. Like I said, I recognize it's not a good song, but I still like it, right? This is one of those things. Faves are going to be Christmas Time, Don't Let the Bells In by The Darkness. It was song number 11. I really like that. Father Christmas by the Kinks, fantastic. Fairytale of New York by Kirsty McCall and the Pogues, and Merry Christmas Everybody by Slade. So great list from Evan David. I'm sure those of you in the UK are going to have some comments on this one. Give me your faves below. What else should have been in there that isn't in there that I should check out? If you haven't already, give this a thumbs up and give us a subscribe. We put up videos every single day. Really appreciate you watching. And to everybody out there, Merry Christmas.